Hello, world. How's everyone doing? Is anyone watching Next.js Conf right now? If so, close that tab because we've got breaking news
Get out of
from.
there.
Yay!
We
We
got a
got a we
real
got a repeat.
React framework
Here we
coming at
go.
you.
Yes, yes. This is the real React Server Components environment that y'all are about to see. But
So I like how
with
you're
us,
flying through Tron space, but I'm just in a room.
well, I used to not have a green screen, and we have changed our ways. I could join your space. We're just gonna join your
Can you?
space here. What's up, man?
Oh,
Your face
oh.
is pretty big, so it's kind of tough.
I
It's
feel
just
violated.
a. You're just there. You gotta. Okay. Jesus. Too much power. Too much power. Anthony, how's it going?
It's going good. Is this the first time I've ever guessed on your stream?
I don't know. I mean, I've gone on your stream a couple times. I don't know if you've
You
ever
haven't been
come
on
over
my
to this
stream. You've been on my streams.
streams. Yeah. I mean, you've
Streams.
hosted. How many accounts have you streamed from at this point?
Oh man. AJC and the web devs.
Mm-hmm.
QuickNode had a Twitch stream, which I created and was the only one to use.
Fair,
Um,
fair.
JavaScript Jam never had a Twitch stream. We just did that through my own account and Twitter and YouTube. And those are probably the main ones. And then I've guessed on like a million streams.
Yep.
Hey, what's up,
Oh,
Nikki?
totally.
I was like, ooh, I'm a mod. I could do that. But maybe I'm not anymore. No, I am. Or am I?
You
Yeah, I
still
am.
are. Yes.
Yeah.
I was going to comment. The people who would be modding are talking right now. I think
Yeah,
Nate
all right.
Codes is also a mod. If not, I'll totally
There's the mod
elevate him.
icons. Yeah, there we go.
Cool. Nice. We got some fighters in the chat.
Yeah.
But yeah, dang.
But yeah,
We've been
I
bopping
remember when
around a
you
lot.
I remember when you started this stream. Good times.
Oh, yeah. It's been. Has it been 2 years? I think it's just been 1 year.
Maybe like a year and a half or something. So I
Yeah,
feel
going
like
on a year and a half.
yeah, it was definitely when I was still at QuickNode that you started it, and that was almost exactly a year ago. It was like 11 months ago that I switched to Edgeo.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Them Slinkity days. Yeah, let's talk about
Slinkity
Slinkity.
days. Yep. This stream overlay that you're looking at is me going to the Slinkity docs and pulling some assets.
That's the
So,
remnants
like
of Slinkity has survived through your stream.
the brand was strong. I wouldn't tell anyone to use the library, but the brand was strong. So we just.
I mean,
stuck
I would
to
still
it.
use it over just pure 11D, or God forbid,
I mean-
11D with web components.
I mean, yes, I'm in the same camp. Yeah, Zach and I still talk.
Cool.
Monthly call. It's nice.
Really?
Yeah,
What do you
but
guys
this
talk
stream
about?
came about. Yeah, sorry, I have a mic delay, so this is going to be a mess. But I remember on Twitter, you were sending something like you were super involved in the community. Then you disconnected for a bit, and now you want to come back with a vengeance, especially with Redwood JS. Is that kind of
Totally.
how we got here?
Yeah, that is how we got here, and so yeah, well, I give a little background here, especially if I think most people who watch your stream probably know who I am because I hang out in your stream a lot.
Probably.
For people who don't know who I am, my
Probably.
name is Anthony Campolo. I'm a developer advocate at Edgeo, which is a deployment provider, kind of enterprise grade, a little bit like Cloudflare or Fastly, type deal. And I do a lot of open source. I first got involved with Redwood back when it first came out in 0.1 days. I was a lowly boot camp student trying to make it in this world. And I got into Redwood because I thought it was really cool and had an interesting community. And I started like podcasting and streaming and doing meetup talks and just like devrelling for it. Essentially, I parlayed that into a job for a GraphQL company called StepZen. I did a Web3 diversion for a bit, then came back and I'm now doing deployment. So yeah, and Ben and I met because how did we first meet? I guess just from like Twitter and Discords and stuff like that. I'm
Yeah.
not really sure exactly how, but I saw you were working on this thing called Slinkity, which I just thought was really cool because it was a lot like some other things I saw coming up. Like I saw Astro coming up, and I knew people were into 11D, but there was no way to get it to work with like React. So you had this idea about, how do we get React and stuff to work with 11D? And I'm like, this is really obvious that people would want this, and you are working on it. You had like a whole library. And so I kind of helped you hack on that a bit, just like, building examples and tutorials, and had you on my podcast. And so we've just been friends ever since. And it's really cool to see you now off in the world doing Astro and all that stuff. So yeah, and I had kind of been falling off the Redwood and the FS Jam wagon just because like I got into all these different job transitions. I had been
Oh yeah.
learning some new tech when I was getting into blockchain, and it became harder. I kept spreading myself thinner and thinner and thinner, and this is something that I always knew was going to be an issue, and eventually kind of hit a breaking point. And I just for 2023 then I got married. So I spent the whole year planning a wedding and a honeymoon. And so then it was like, I'm doing my work and my wife, and that's my life. And
Yeah.
so that tweet came on the last day of my honeymoon when I was like, all right, I'm about to go back into the real world.
Yep.
I want to refocus my life, think about what do I really want to do with my time? Who are the people I want to associate with? What are the projects I want to actually devote myself to? And I was thinking about it, like, I'm still just FS Jam and Redwood. There's nothing I've really done since has given me as much personal fulfillment and led to as many great connections and have been as like professionally rewarding and intellectually rewarding, just all those things. They were never financially rewarding, which is the biggest issue. But I'm in a space now where I make a decent living and I'm living pretty cheaply relative to how expensively I could be living in other places. So yeah, it just makes a lot of sense. So part of that is coming on to streams like this to show off the new with Redwood.
Oh yeah. And I totally get what you mean about. Well, first off, it sounds like your priorities are straight, because some people would like I. I remember some crazy story from Cassidy Williams actually on how she was working on I think it was Coursera course up until like the day before their wedding, and that was her
Crazy.
priority. It's like, no, why you got to do this? Uh,
Yeah, no, my wife would not be happy about
I mean,
that.
no, I totally get it. And also what you said about frameworks, I mean, that resonates. It's I mean, I think I tweeted this at one point that every developer should build their own framework at some point. Not saying it should reach widespread adoption or if anyone would use it, but that's probably the time that I spent building Slinkity is still the most I learned in the shortest period of time. And I'm sure contributing to Redwood, you also get that experience because you're not using the thing, you're shaping the thing. And I don't know if you're involved in like RFCs or code contributions or just documentation and DevRel, but there's a lot of facets that you can get involved in too. So
Yeah,
what parts are you involved in over there?
yeah, I've been always on the DevRel side, always on the kind of content creation side. I think that the way I do it is I tend to build content and examples like a week or two before I really should. So I end up QAing stuff as I do it. So I find that's where I could really add some value without necessarily like writing code for the framework. Is that like once stuff they're like, yeah, it's basically done. You can pretty much build stuff for it. And I'm like, are you sure? We're gonna find
Mhm.
out. And I remember
Yep.
with you in Slinkity, I was hacking on Slinkity. I'm like, so how do you deploy this? And you're like, oh, I've never deployed this. What do you mean?
Why would you do that?
Yeah.
Who does that?
So that's the type of stuff where I find I could add a decent amount of value there. Yeah, early QA is highly undervalued, as Nate here
True.
is saying. So I like doing that, and then as I'm doing that, I kind of learn things about it as things break, and then I kind of ensure that there's a nice golden path with like a hello world. So I think just like having a good hello world example, some developers will think that's like totally trivial. And it's like, okay, well then why don't you have one? Like if it's so trivial, then you should be able to build one very, very simply, which they usually don't. So I don't think
Yep.
it's as trivial as people think. And so that's kind of what I see as like my main value add is that I can write you a tutorial that will ensure the newbiest noob who shows up to your project will have at least something working, even if it's very basic, even if it doesn't show off all the cool hot features that your framework does, they will at least have a project running on their local machine so that they can build something themselves. I think that itself is something that has to be table stakes for every framework.
Totally. Yeah, when you did that for my framework, it was the unofficial docs for a bit
Yeah.
until documentation got more robust. And you also owned the SEO, so I mean, kind of
Yeah,
respect
it's
it.
true.
As long
And
as you
it
link to the project, who cares?
that's
It
the real
doesn't really
benefit
matter.
of doing it slightly early is that yes, you can capitalize on the SEO. I've done this with a couple frameworks. I get my solid start one was doing pretty good for a while, but I think that kind of started falling off because everyone started writing about that at a
They
certain point.
did. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's crazy. So I know that we are tighter on time than I normally am for a stream. So I'm going to at least introduce our characters here.
Yeah.
So pulling up my screen share, we are checking out good old Redwood JS. I
Yeah.
put a
So
spicy title for this stream. I didn't even say it was Redwood. I just said React Server Components without Next.js. What does that look
mm,
like? What does that mean? As far as I know, this is the first mature framework that is releasing something that you can try experimentally. They won't be the last to use RSCs, but this might be the first framework to do it. Am I right about that?
it depends whether you consider Gatsby a real framework.
We won't get into that.
and
We're not
and
getting
that's
into that.
I've not used it. I've heard that Gatsby has React Server components, but
Okay, okay. I didn't know that.
I don't use Gatsby, so I don't know. But yeah, I think this is where we're even more so than Gatsby. We're not just saying we implemented React Server components. Redwood is saying we are migrating our core infrastructure to React Server components. Like we're going all
Yep.
in. Like so that was the term Tom used. All in. We're going all in. We're going
All in.
all in. Hang on, listen to the All In
Yep.
podcast. So yeah, which is weird because Redwood is a GraphQL framework, and as React Server components have been coming out, and we've been talking about all these things like suspense and error boundaries and data fetching and data loading and things. I keep being like, well, Redwood has done all that stuff since day one with our cool GraphQL
Sure.
API. So I have yet to figure out what we actually get from React Server components that we didn't get before, beyond letting people who complain about GraphQL stop complaining about GraphQL.
Yep. When I talked to Dan Abramov, and I say this a lot, the first thing we talked about was how it's a GraphQL. It replaces the philosophy of it, where
Mm-hmm.
the problem you run into building a front end app is you send too much data and you bundle it into all of your props, and it's a bad time. So GraphQL was a way to selectively choose parts of API data that the browser needs to show the page.
Mm-hmm.
And before you could do that with GraphQL to kind of make like truncated JSON. But now with server components, it's just embedding straight into the HTML. So instead of having a separate endpoint, choosing parts of that endpoint that you need and coming back, you're instead just using .map inside of a JSX component. And you're writing lists with the parts that are actually needed to display user profiles or whatever else.
But that's an
So it's at the
illusion
server level.
because it is hitting a server.
Yes. Servers that return HTML. And I know
Yeah.
up until now, Redwood was, am I right that it was mostly a client only SPA with helpers to query from GraphQL?
So it didn't do SSR in the traditional sense, like at
Sure.
runtime. We had pre-render, so you could basically,
Hmm.
if you had like a static page without any interactivity, you could basically build that statically. And so we had that
Okay.
ability. So basically the only thing we haven't been able to do is like pure SSR, which because we were doing GraphQL, because of how the architecture was set up, that was never really that big of an issue. It was more so an issue because everyone was doing SSR with Next and would show up and say, "How do I do
Yep.
SSR?"
How
And
do
we're
you
like,
do it?
"Well, you don't necessarily need it." And like for all these reasons, they'd be like, "Well, sorry, I want SSR, peace." And it's like, well,
Yep.
crap.
Yeah, it's true. And I mean, what is the target app for Redwood? Like, what is the sweet spot of something I'm building? Because I see it's geared towards startups that are, trying to scaffold something, but that encompasses any kind of website in my mind. So I don't know
Uh,
what specific
yes,
kinds.
yeah, yes and no. I would say it's similar to what you
Okay.
would get from like a Ruby on Rails in that you want
Okay.
to have an app that's like a database backed CRUD app with users. Like that's kind of what I think of as the sweet spot. And that is different from, a static website
Yep,
without users
it is.
or, a front end framework with a little bit of back end stuff. Like it really, and someone's saying in the chat, batteries included. Yeah, the term full stack is thrown around all the time. I think Redwood is legitimately a full stack framework by
Sure.
almost anyone's, definition. If someone's here is like, why are you pimping a competitor to Astro? I would not consider it really a competitor to Astro, even though Astro is starting to slip into this, more app like thing. Um, and it's like the one thing they're also saying here, I want user management and authentication. And that's one thing that you're still like, Redwood just blows other frameworks totally out of the water. Like we have a whole RBAC implementation, like role based access control. No other framework
Yeah,
has that. I can tell you for sure.
probably not, and certainly not Astro. To the point someone was mentioning as competitors, I actually work with Keyboard Cowboy a little bit. We've been talking about how he's might be using Astro for something with users with CRUD operations because I'm
Wow.
experimenting with that. I want to kick the tires there.
Yeah.
And we are using like a dual message on our homepage right now. I feel like it's that side of CRUD that we're still taking the primitives and turning them into best practices, letting community build libraries around it, and then use those to say, oh, that's how authentication typically works. Let's pull that into core or make this library the recommended way to do it. Or role based permissions. Like if there is a user library for Astro to do that, then we can use that to inform things.
So
So
I I
it's
use
in the finders phase.
yeah, so I use Astro a lot. My personal site is Astro, and so I'd
Sure.
be curious, just real quick, to talk to you about this because that whole process you're talking about, I think it's great. The only note I would have is that it's really hard to tell which plugins are official and which ones are supported and which ones are just a user kind of one-off thing because there's different
Yeah.
places to find them. And something like I think what's the one, like the sitemap one or the RSS one? It's one of those two. It like has its own docs page, but it's not in the official plugins list. So it's like this looks more official than an official plugin, but it's not in the official plugins list. So you have stuff like that where it's hard to tell, is this supported or not.
Okay, I'll need to look into that because I know we have an integrations landing page where we flag things that are Astro owned versus third party, but maybe we're just
So
missing some things on that page. I don't
yeah.
know.
So I think that's kind of the thing. I think there's some that have kind of fallen through the cracks, so they're not in the official integration page, but they're clearly built by the team, as far as I can tell.
Yeah, yeah. I won't go down that rabbit hole, but that is good to audit. I know RSS is a funky one because it's not an
Mhm.
integration. It's just like a helper API to make endpoints. And
That's
I
why
think
then.
that's
Yeah.
it's not the first time people said it. So I feel like just call it an integration, even if it isn't. just it'll make it more
It's yeah.
discoverable.
Yeah, if
So
you're importing it and you're putting it in your Astro config, like
yeah,
those should all be
it
in the
doesn't
same
matter.
bucket. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah, but I mean, what we've been talking about there is things that are very crud. Up until now, I have preferred client-driven, config-based routing, React and suspense, and loading spinners wherever you need them. But it's definitely a decoupled set of endpoints that hydrate into a client-side app, and that's something Astro is just trying to like ride in on. As take your create React app, plop it into an Astro index route and then slowly move things towards Vite, move out endpoints and others into Astro endpoints, so on and so forth. Maybe it's not the best way to do it, but if you're in that crowd already, it's a way towards adoption. And
Yeah.
it sounds like
The
Redwood up until now has been close to that, but way more batteries included.
it's been the type of thing where if you want to use React and GraphQL and you want like a full batteries included framework, then Redwood has been like
Sure.
the only way to do it and do it really nicely. I think getting to having SSR and things like that has been what people kept asking for, and also just the GraphQL thing in general. People seem to be kind of moving away from it. I've always really liked GraphQL. I think that when people talk about kind of the issues of GraphQL, they're usually thinking about what it would be like to like build their own GraphQL framework, not necessarily to use like a full featured GraphQL framework because they'd never used
Hmm.
one before. So I wish more people would have given Redwood a shot with GraphQL. I think it would have changed a lot of people's minds. But at a certain point, you have to admit, people want what they want. You can't force someone to change their mind unless, we
Totally.
implemented a totalitarian communist GraphQL society. So,
A
here we are.
federation.
We're giving them what they want, giving the people what they want. Oh, and I was gonna say
Totally.
Vite. We didn't support Vite until very
Oh,
recently as well. So
okay.
getting Vite in has been part of the SSR journey because we were using Webpack for the longest time. And it was like, how do you even do that? Like, how do you do
That's
SSR with
nuts.
Webpack? I don't even know.
There's a reason they're moving off of Webpack on the next team. And also getting RSCs to work in Vite. Like, are you saying, and I guess we'll try it, but these early experience of React server components are built on Vite?
Yes, and this is I hadn't even thought of this actually because as you're pointing out here, since Next is not using Vite, this is
No.
we're probably the first people to ever do this.
Yeah, if you got it working, I mean, that feels like a generic spec waiting to
It's
happen.
it's working in the sense that it ran on my machine. We're gonna
Yeah.
find out how well it works now that Ben tries it.
No, totally.
Yeah,
And we have an
yeah, and
example app that we
yeah,
wanted to try, right?
I was on Ryan Carniato's stream about 2 months ago, and
Yeah.
it was just barely not working. Like there was like I had like a single. We were right up to the point where it would have worked if there wasn't one single last beat bug, but there was. So I think since then that has been fixed.
Nice. Okay. And I embarrassingly closed my Discord to save on CPU. So if you could share the link in our video
Yes.
chat, I can pull
Yeah,
up
yeah.
the
And do you
repo.
already have it? Do you already have like dependencies and stuff
I
installed?
don't.
Okay, so you should do that. That's gonna take a second. And let's while you're doing that, we can show the repo.
Totally.
I'm gonna share
So let me
two
pull
links
this in.
here. One of them is gonna be a list of all of our React Server Components examples, and then one is gonna be a specific AI based example that we'll look at.
Yeah. Nice. So we have a bunch of demos in here. And these are all like RFC level proofs of concept, right?
Yeah, so this is all on Redwood
Looking at
7.
0 stars.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, this is just being built by Toby. This is mostly just for people like me who want to like have examples that are already running and capable of like sharing and iterating on. So if you were to install Redwood from scratch and like go through the docs and everything, you'd be on version 6, not version 7, and none of this
Yeah.
stuff would work or be in the framework, or your project would not be arranged in this way with all of your like server entry files and stuff like that. So let me look over. You should zoom in a lot with your text.
I will do. There we go. One more notch. There we go.
Okay, can you go
Uh,
back to the Git repo?
yes. I'm just gonna. Should I run pm install? Or y'all are a yarn house?
We're a yarn only. Yeah, that's
Ah,
something I've been complaining about for a while, but we're kind of locked in for
yeesh.
legacy reasons.
Yeah, I don't know what version of yarn I'm on, but it's installing, so we're gonna let that happen.
Yeah, if you have yarn at all, it's configured in a way where it notices that you need yarn 3 and just does it. So
Mm,
that's kind of the biggest issue with yarn right now is that you need a yarn config file, or even running yarn will confuse it. So when
cool.
with Redwood, it's already configured correctly. So you can usually just, as long as you have yarn at all installed, it's going to work for you. But anyway, you see here at the bottom, this is a list of Redwood RSC demos.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
that's where if you look like I know you built these RSC kind of like proof of concepts from the beginning. So when you look at terms like, server mutations, form server actions,
Yeah.
you know what that means. Most people probably don't.
Most don't. And we can poke some of these. I stray away from things. Well, now server actions are officially part of the React spec. So you can talk about them a little bit more than you used to.
Hmm.
So that's cool that y'all are already playing with that. I won't go deep on that, but I'll check out suspense because that's what I've built before. And this has, yeah, message counter and suspense. So I think it said to go to app.tsx to
Yeah.
see how it's
So
wired up.
yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yeah. Okay, interesting. So first off, is it file-based routing?
Okay. So let's go. Yeah. So go back to SRC. Let me look at a few
Okay.
things here,
Sure.
and let's look at There should be a routes dot tsx file.
Oh, okay. Because I know y'all have been config based for a while.
Yeah, exactly. Okay,
Oh,
cool.
okay.
So this is not so this is how we did it in the past, and you see here
Yeah.
there's no route that points to your home page.
Mhm.
So how this is going to get to work with everything, I have no idea. Basically, what we're doing right now is we're just implementing like a single page RSC. I guess it's probably going to be kind of like the app directory in Next. So right now we're kind of
Okay.
implementing that, and we're like building it in, even though it has nothing to do with the rest of the framework. So
Yeah, it seems different. Okay,
it really is.
interesting.
Yeah. This is like Redwood was not built for this. I really have no idea what we're gonna do once it is working and how we're gonna integrate with the rest of the framework. But this is where we're at right now. So if you go back to the app file, that is gonna be
Yeah,
like your home page. That's gonna render into your index.html,
totally.
and then you have a document.tsx and some other things like that.
Yep, yep. Interesting. So this isn't how y'all want it to work. Y'all honestly aren't sure about routing yet, but could be just Next.js based until y'all can innovate on something else.
Yeah, I guess it's like the question that I am most curious about is how is this all going to integrate with Prisma? Because
Yeah.
with Prisma, that would give us a model. We would use that model to generate a GraphQL schema. That GraphQL schema could then be used to generate like a CRUD application. And then that
Mm,
would give you also the routing. Like if you had a
yeah.
blog, it would create individual pages for each blog post, and it would create an edit page for each blog post and all that stuff. So we're probably going to lose a lot of that scaffolding ability as we're doing this, unless we want to like. I'm guessing like what's going to happen is we're going to get RSC working, and then we're going to backwards out rebuild the rest of the framework around that. Like that kind of
Yeah.
seems like the most logical like strangler pattern type way of doing this. So that's all going to be things we're going to kind of figure out in the future. But right now, it's just like how do we get RSC working in the first place? So by that, we're basically just kind of building in all this stuff that you would have with your Next or Solid Start or Remix. You have an entry dot client file and entry dot server file. You have a document file, and then all that stuff basically figures out how to slot the right things into the right places.
Yep. Interesting. So I'll admit I know Redwood generates a lot, but I don't know how much it generates. You hinted at a couple things. Like if
Mm-hmm.
I have a Prisma file that has blogs or blog post as a table,
Mm-hmm.
then does it like generate endpoints for me? Does it generate resolvers or is there some amount of manual setup there?
So that's where in the past, GraphQL, there's no endpoints. There's an endpoint, and then you have a schema.
Sure.
So it would generate your GraphQL schema, and then you have your create post, update post, delete post. And so those are your resolvers, and those are part of the schema. And so you don't need anything else except your GraphQL endpoint. You send your GraphQL queries, and that includes your create your mutations and your queries. So as I said, all that goes out the window now. So how
Mm.
that's all going to work, I'm not sure.
Okay. So it's sounding more and more like this is a playground to see if this will work at all because there's no like official RFC on Redwood's side saying this is
Well,
the future.
that's not true. There was an
Okay.
RFC. What we're doing right now has already deviated from that. So that's why I'm not really like
Okay.
showing the RFC and be like, this is how we're gonna do it, because I already know that's not how we're gonna do it. Like we've
Okay.
already
Yeah.
deviated from the RFC. So
Yeah.
it's this is why everyone's complaining about React Server components, because it's hard, it's
It's
new, it's
hard.
not even fully baked in React, so it can't really be fully baked in the frameworks either. We're all iterating on this at the same time. So it's I wish I could be like, yes, Redwood, figure it out, it's perfect, come and use it and it'll be production ready. It's like we're not really even close to that, but we're saying, hey, we're trying to create an alternative for people who want to use server components and don't want to use Next, or don't want to use just React proper. They want a more full feature framework. So this is still
Yes.
really aimed at enthusiasts who like want to work on this new tech and want to help push it forward. If you want to build a production app with Redwood today, use GraphQL.
Totally.
I'm serious. It will be very, very stable. It will do what you want it to do. It has a million helper stuff built in that will make GraphQL very easy for you. So that's kind of where we're at in terms of like how we're pitching this right now. It's really hard to say, hey, we're an app for production apps that are being built by startups being funded millions of dollars, and also be like, hey, we have this brand new thing that's like totally broken in
Yeah.
all these ways. So
Yeah,
it's a
yeah,
little bit
yeah.
of like a parallel universe type thing happening.
No, I to this day tell newbies, like if a friend were to ask me, I'm trying to build a CRUD application, what should I use? I would say Next.js Pages Router before I say App Router because I know that
Definitely.
they'll
Yeah.
have years of blog posts to fall back on. I know there will not be a single experimental hook in their app when they build something that works well. So I'm just comfortable recommending it, but I'm not comfortable with App Router yet. It's just the
Mhm.
trouble of, I'll admit, how they've marketed it, how they pushed it forward. It feels more stable than it is, and it feels like there's
Hmm.
more built in than there is. And it
Interesting.
sounds like Redwood has a higher bar because Next.js leaves a lot to you still. Like Next.js doesn't have a
Hmm.
database opinion. They don't have GraphQL opinion, certainly.
Hmm.
But Redwood does. Redwood's very batteries included. So I would expect
Yeah.
Redwood to be slower to make this the christened way to do things.
Yeah, and once we get there, that means we're going to be able to offer a lot more in terms of we'll be able to
Yes.
say, hey, we're on RSC, and also we have the whole back end figured out for you as well. So that's going to be really fun once we get to there. But we should probably try getting this AI thing to run in case anything
Certainly
breaks. We
can.
have time to troubleshoot it.
Yeah. We'll see if we can get it running. So let's
So make
jump
sure to
over
get your
here.
make sure to get your API key in before you do anything else.
Yep, I've got it in my one password. So I will hide my screen share, copy it, come back just to be sure. But we've got this right here, Redwood build and serve. So let's go ahead and run these.
Yeah, so what this is doing, this is basically just running a build command and then a serve command, which is like in Astro, how you can preview your what is built in your dist folder kind of thing. So this will not work if you just kind of try and throw this into like a Netlify, because it's like
Yeah,
basically just running a server. Like, so you could stick this in a Docker container, or you could run this with PM2 on like a DigitalOcean or something like that. So right now this is just like running your server basically.
gotcha. And it looks like it's popping up something for editor config and Wix. Okay. Gonna ignore that. I know editor config is a opinion. I don't know what it does. I just know it's different from .vs code, but I'm gonna ignore those.
Yeah, I don't use any of this kind of stuff usually, so I always ignore those kind of things. You see, also we have a
Fair.
Git pod though. You can do all of this in the cloud allegedly.
Yeah, and I will try that if we run into any issues. But we've
Yeah, I
got
have no
our
idea
proxy.
if we even got the Git pod things working for the RSC examples. So
Yeah, who
we'll
knows?
see.
But you've got the bucket over there.
Yeah,
If it runs, it runs.
and for your
All right,
key,
so
it's
we
going to
have
be
something.
OpenAI underscore API underscore key is what the env needs to be named.
Gotcha. And there's probably an example in here too. Well, not for that
No,
one.
no,
Okay,
that example is incorrect.
that's fine. Do we
Just
need
because
these though?
yeah, this is where me being the DevRel example person could come in and make those small tweaks would help. Right now, basically, Toby just explains everything in the README.
Oh, totally. And I can head back over here just to be sure. But yeah, no
You shouldn't
matter
use
whether
any. You
you
shouldn't use any of those.
shouldn't use any, no problem.
Yeah, no, just have a
Then we got
single.
Open
Just you
API.
want a single. Yeah, just the OpenAI API key. Ignore everything else. That's at least in the
No
project I had
problem.
that was running that worked did that. So let's keep that all the same.
Okay. And I'm opening up my one password right here. I've got my
I always
key.
avoid using one password for anything except my actual passwords because I worry about making it the Uber entry point to my entire life. That seems like actually a really bad idea.
It it does, and I have never used it for environment variables until now. They just made it easy enough that I was like, well, I'll try it.
For this, it's
Just so
like
we can hop on
this is
stream. Yeah.
obviously not a huge security issue if this does leak. So
Yeah, also that. Well, I mean, I have no credit card attached, so you can't really do anything.
the main thing
It
is if
should
you
just
ever
lock.
do start doing some OpenAI stuff, you can set a usage limit on your API key so they can't go past like $5 or $10. That's the move. Because if it does leak and someone just runs off with your key, they can charge a lot of money to your account, actually.
Yeah. Yeah, I bet they can. And everyone's trying to do that too. But we head back over here. I saw it was 88910. Is there a reason for that number?
8, 9, 10. Easy to remember.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Everyone's
it's not
got their own port
89,
number,
10.
so
8, 9, 10.
okay, fine. I mean, nothing can beat Astro's 4321, but
Yeah, and whoever think of having numbers in sequential order as a port number? Certainly no one has ever done it before.
no one's ever done it.
Nope.
No one's ever done it. No framework's done it. Oh, okay. So we're on a
technically,
we're on a basic
you
chat.
gotta remember 4 numbers. Redwood, you only have to remember 3 because 10 is a single number.
I'm gonna be friendly to it. Okay. So we're lost in space, but we did see something. Okay, let's see. No
So
chat model was
try
specified.
clicking.
Okay.
Oh, that's because the key. So if you put the key in, you gotta restart your development server if you put the key in after you started it.
No problem. Ooh, Keyboard Cowboy. I accidentally published a demo app with the API key in the JavaScript. It's so easy to do with client apps.
What's actually, so
Yeah.
this is cool actually, because Microsoft owns OpenAI effectively. If you upload your API key to GitHub, it will actually automatically shut your key off because it can detect it and then basically make sure it doesn't do anything.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's tight integration. Oh no. Okay. All right. It's so over. We're so back. We're
Yeah.
so back.
And then someone has a question about deployment, which we'll
Oh.
answer as soon as we get this.
Okay. So we got a little further this time. You exceeded your current quota. I have not pinged this ever.
Okay, so let me give you my key. I think that's because
Sure.
you didn't
Go ahead.
you didn't put in a credit card. I didn't expect yours to actually work. So
Oh, you need one for even just free access. Okay.
I shared it in our shared ping chat. Is that gonna
Perfect.
work?
Let me hop over there.
And then while you're doing that, so the deployment question, with what we're showing right here, it's like all bets are off because this is not the same way we usually deploy stuff. But if you're using Redwood in the classic GraphQL way, we have a single CLI command, yarn redwood setup deploy blank. You can deploy to Netlify, Vercel, Fly, Flight Control, my company Edgeo. There's others as well. Like we have like 7 deployment targets. Pretty much all of them, you run a single command and it automatically configures your project for that specific provider. Redwood actually was created on the vision of what's called a universal deployment machine. The idea being that once you build your project and it works locally in your computer, you should be able to deploy it anywhere you want without having to do anything. So we put a lot of time and thought and effort into the deployment step itself. And I actually learned how to deploy things by working on all these different deployment targets with Redwood. It was super fun and super educational. So if that is something that concerns you, that is the one thing I can say quite confidently we do very well on. And try clicking the send button, not hitting enter. I don't know if that's actually gonna make a difference. Actually, it probably won't because last time you got a response.
Oh.
Yes, it works.
Oh, okay. We've got it. All right. You need Next.js to use React server components? It's a good question. It's a good question. React and Next.js. Two of my favorite topics. Well, server components are still under development, not yet available. They're going to be a game changer when it comes to server-side rendering client applications. To answer your question, yeah, they really rambled there. Server components are being developed specifically for Next.js, which is a framework on top of React. If you want to use it, you'll likely need Next.js. Hey, that's accurate. That's honestly accurate. As this could change in the future. And it asked me a question. Have you had any experience with React and Next in your web development journey? Huh.
So I
It's
think
a friendly bot.
Yeah, I think Toby, I'm not sure if he put a custom prompt in or if a custom model or something, but when I was messing around with it before, and I was asking like weird random questions about poop, which is the thing I do with GPT for some
Good.
reason. And it was like, oh, I don't know if I want to talk about that. Let's talk about web development. And I'm like,
Yep.
that's not what ChatGPT would say. This is something different.
Build an app to share poop jokes. What stack should I use? People do this in Copilot, and it will say some things it shouldn't. Sounds like a fun project. Oh, it's not going to talk about poop specifically. Ooh, what is this stack? Since you're interested, how do you know I'm interested in that? Probably the prompt. I would
Yeah.
recommend a combo of technologies, including React on the front end. Front end, React with JSX for building the user interface. Back end, Node, MongoDB. Oh, they're going MERN on this. They're going full on MERN.
Or Pern.
Ooh. Or Pern.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think Pern's in here. Oh, yeah,
No,
it
it
is
says
Pern.
That's Postgres. It says
Okay,
Mongo
it's
or
MERN and Pern.
Postgres. Yeah.
You're right. You're right. Just
Yeah,
one possible stack.
this is literally the stack that they taught me in boot camp.
It's the stack I taught at a college boot camp. So I know.
Yeah, it's the stack, you know.
It's the classic. Oh, gee. All right. Well, it works. Now I have to poke the code, at least a little
Yeah.
bit.
Yeah, let's
I
see,
gotta
see
know.
what happens. Yeah,
Yeah.
someone
So
they're saying here get some CSS on this sucker, so that'd be a good idea.
I'm going to add some dark mode. Absolutely.
Okay, that's ambitious, but all right.
No, it ain't. No, it ain't, because friend of the show, Open Props, makes this very simple.
Ah,
So,
I
yes.
don't know if anyone has used open props with Redwood.
Don't worry. We can just grab files. We're not going to actually try to bundle anything. Unpackage.com. That sounds
Yeah,
good
I
to
know
me.
open props is pretty dang simple. It's something that I've been, if I were spending more time on CSS, I'd probably be using it a lot.
Yeah, it's especially good for dark mode. It doesn't help you with the toggle. The toggle is notoriously just annoying. But respecting your system settings is like baseline. If you can do that, you're probably all right.
All right. Yeah, I have an Astro template that came with dark mode toggle.
Nice. Ooh, and we have document props, Redwood Web. I'm going to ignore that for now, but that is interesting. So let me just do it. Oh, yeah, you can't do style blocks in JSX directly. You would need like a stringified version. So I'll just do a link tag. And I never done it this way, but I'm going to find out how well it works.
Yeah, so many ways to get CSS in.
There's so many ways to jam it. This baby can fit so much CSS. So all we need is normalize. And I forgot to say rel style sheet, amateur hour. Style sheet. I feel like I'm building a Slinkity app right now.
Haha.
Using link tags. What year is this? So if I go back here,
Where is it?
what year is this? Okay,
You
I don't
want
know
that
if
arc
document
chain?
changes will reload. Find out. So in our head, nah, document changes don't reload the server.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, I was hopeful. But I am curious what the CSS import is. I guess that's the framework doing this.
Check out index.css.
Okay.
Or it says array of CSS import strings is what it says. So
So
you could
where is
try.
document used? Is it used anywhere? It is. It's in the server entry point. Well, that makes sense.
Yeah, let's check that out.
All right, and now we have server entry, which is probably being passed straight from Redwood. So we can't do much there. But okay, index CSS. I'll just plop it in there and see what I got.
Yeah, I'm assuming that would just be for straight CSS. I'm not sure how that's going to work with unpackage or with open props.
It should work because we're using add import, which is a browser thing. So that / normalize should.
Yeah, this is also one of the reasons, like, there's so many discussions around Tailwind and stuff, but just the fact that everyone has figured out Tailwind, I like using Tailwind because it keeps me from having to figure out any of this weird CSS import stuff.
Well, yes, as soon as you set up Tailwind, but it's so big.
I never set up Tailwind because every framework has already done it for me. I'm never going to have to set up Tailwind. Yeah.
Okay, I don't think this is being used. Either it
You should
is.
try restarting your server before you decide any of these things are
Yeah,
not working.
I know. I was seeing what hot reloading we actually get, and I am
Assume there's
trying
none.
everything that probably won't work. So, you know,
Yeah, assume that there is no hot reload. Like this thing is very, very new. So any dev time
totally,
niceties you should expect not to be there.
totally. Because that's to a full prod build. It looks like maybe there's no reloading.
Probably not.
Yeah, that's all right. So we'll probably do mostly walking through code and not a lot of changes, unless we're certain about what we're doing.
Yeah, let's
I could
just
also just
once we figure out the CSS
modify.
thing.
Let's see. Yeah, we didn't get anything. I'm sad.
Hmm.
Yeah, it didn't work. So
Try
here's
putting actually let's try one last thing. Put it directly in
okay.
your index.html file.
Okay, that's an idea.
Yeah, that should be the highest level, so that should work.
Yeah, I don't think index.css is used.
Well, it might
Yeah,
be. It just would only take actual CSS. Well, that's what you're trying to do though with the P. So
yeah,
yeah, I don't know.
yeah. So I know a regular old link tag would work, and I can actually bug test that by realizing I'm in a browser.
Yeah, right.
So, and it is HTML. Go in here.
Should bump up your font just a little bit in there.
I know it's always a problem. I started using a plugin that bumps my monitor to 1080p. I don't want to do 720, but I could do that
I'm just
next
saying, just
spring.
in your editor right now, or in your browser right now, just command plus it.
Ah, heck. Okay, so I edited as HTML.
There you go. Yeah,
I've actually, I rarely do this. So,
yeah. This is the old school way.
yep. Or if we're not found. Okay, interesting. See, this is why we test. So now we just done that. It looks like I can't. Okay, this is a minified guy. But yeah, I was hopeful that that would do something because I know how to do this when I have a bundler. I install it, I grab the CSS that I want, like this, and then I'm done. But I don't know if that's going to work here.
I mean, we could just try yarn installing it.
Aha. Okay, so let me try this. You can also just install light and dark themes, which is kind of fun.
Yeah, that looks
What I
like the
say.
move. There we go.
So, boom. I don't know why the text is black, but maybe Redwood is trying to be nice about something.
Yeah, it's trying to be nice, so it gave you total
Black
darkness.
text.
That's the most
Yeah, we got
successful, right? If everything
yeah,
is black, then you can see everything, right?
exactly. Oh, okay. So I think I need both the normalize and the style file. There's like a base
Mm.
file that you need for anything to work. Yeah. So you need this too. No problem. Let me double check if that works. So I'll go in here as HTML. Link rel equals style sheet. href equals that guy. Boom. Beautiful. Look
Awesome.
how beautiful that is. All right. So now I'm just going to copy this into our project so we don't have to, accidentally reload and then realize what we did. Oops, I almost went to Discord. I don't know what that muscle memory was. Let's go back here. I don't think we did anything to that file. We're just going to add a couple link tags and call it a day. Oh, we have a page reload. Wait a minute. We have a page reload.
Maybe it reloads on the index.
Oh, well, Vite thinks something happened, but it can't actually push it to the
Okay.
browser.
Yeah, so just restart the
Vite,
server and then we should be
Vite, you're
good.
trying. You're
It
trying. Let
really
me see if it
wants to
actually
happen.
works.
It's
It
really
really
trying to
wants it.
make reload happen.
Oh well. Okay, so let's actually look at the server components here. So we'll let that spin up, and we've got everything fully server rendered as far as I can tell. Is there any use client at all? Oh,
Oh,
oh yeah, it
probably
is
not.
fully server. Interesting. So we have chat state, button type submit. Oh, there's some weird stuff going on here. So let's try to read it from app onward. We have a chat. We have a conversation, user and assistant. It's very legible. We have an input right here and a submit button. What does submit button do? That returns a button, but it also has chat state, which is this is a separate module, so I'm just not going to care about that, I guess.
That's just the types.
Okay. Yeah, yeah. But this is a library that we're pulling on. You mentioned AI JSX.
Oh, yeah. So I did not mention that yet.
Well, to
That's what
me, right?
Toby. Yeah, that's what Toby brought in to use this for. Um, I don't really know much about this library because when I have used the OpenAI API, I use their Node implementation, which is not their JSX implementation. But I'll drop a link to this
Gotcha.
in the chat.
That's cool.
So it's the AI application framework for JavaScript with a lowercase s.
Hmm.
Fail. Framework for building AI applications using JavaScript and JSX. You get great tools for prompt engineering. You can have the LLM render React components in its response instead of only text. That's interesting. It responds with a React component.
Yep.
Huh.
And it seems like that's decoupled the whole way down. Even the pending state is render a separate button in place of this button, now with disabled applied. That's
I
very
would
backwards from how I'm used to
I would not want to build an app like this. I would want
it.
to directly hit the endpoint, get the stuff, and then shove that into a React component. That's just my
Yeah,
personally how I would do it. But if someone's living
totally.
that JSX everything life, maybe this would make a lot of sense.
Maybe.
Like for
I mean,
MDXing, maybe.
yeah, it depends how much client side JS is being used. Because if
Right.
there's no
Yeah.
client JS, yeah, you have to redraw the button from the server. That is very true. You're going full HTMX on them. But if it's client side, well, I could have a use state to do this instead. But we don't know. It's the library.
Just don't know.
We just don't know. Because if I inspect the page, I don't know what'll be on here. Well, let's at least try it. Let's see what resources we have. Okay. So we have a massive client bundle. Absolutely huge. Never mind.
How big is
And
it?
this is a production build, so and I have a feeling we won't be able to understand it. Yeah. So who
How big is
knows?
it?
233 kilobytes.
That's fine.
Pretty big. Pretty big in
Is it
my
like half
opinion.
the size of Next?
Nah, next Hello World these days is 60K,
Oh, really?
65.
Okay.
They
Cool.
got it down. It used to be
Yeah.
like 120, so good on them.
Okay.
They're getting there. But yeah, we have suspense, and this is server suspense. So it's as far as I know, and you have the fallback, that's the loading state we were looking at. This is streaming in from the server. It is not doing a client side API call, or at least it shouldn't be.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Well, I think it's a good thing because instead of having to send a client component that fetches JSON and renders JSON on the browser, instead it's just rendering the text literally as text nodes as they come through. So it's like bare metal. There's no transformation, there's no components. It's just streaming that. So I think that's cool. We have 233 kilobytes to do it, so
Yeah, so it's
not
like
worth it
it's very
yet,
fast except for the startup cost. Yeah.
except for that massive startup cost, which you don't
Yeah.
need for server components. It's just probably how this demo is working, and it's probably bundling the AI library by accident or on purpose. I don't know. That's my guess.
Well, if the AI library is well, okay, so I guess yeah, the question is AI.jsx actually being used on the client or is it being used to render JSX on the server and then feed
Exactly.
it to you? Because that would be the thing to do. Yeah, it may also be it's very, very possible that because of how this whole migration is happening, we're also bundling things like Apollo and the Redwood router and
Yeah,
all the
who
stuff you would
knows?
need to actually make Redwood work in a GraphQL way, in which case all
Totally.
that stuff will eventually be figured out.
Yep. Oh, and I bet this is using server components because we're on the experimental next library. That's got to be used because we have here suspense, and this is we're in a server component right now. There's no decorators, so this is only built to handle server streams. They could not be doing it on the client. Otherwise, we wouldn't see this fallback. It wouldn't be Wouldn't be using any
Interesting.
server component features.
Yeah.
So
Someone's asking in the chat, this is server components are JSON or are they not?
they are not. I have a debugging tool you can use to like see what the raw output is, but it's a proprietary format. You will literally see
Mhm.
in the network call application slash JSX text or something like that.
Hmm.
So they invented their own content type in order to manage just the smallest stream of information to help React draw elements. It's not HTML, it's not JSON. It's a third thing that's smaller than JSON that React can interpret. That's what's up.
Someone's also asking if Remix is working on React server components, and it's like, yes, while they
We
argue about not doing it
yes,
the entire time.
exactly. Yep.
They're
Remix is a
very
funny one.
reluctantly doing it.
Yep. They seemed more excited now than they were a few months ago. At least when I spoke to Kinsey Dunce about it at a
Did you?
conference.
I mean, did you just see today? Michael Florence tweeted about how you could rebuild all of RSC in Remix without it.
Dang. Wait, rebuild without what?
That he said he could get everything RSC gives you without needing RSC in Remix is basically what he said.
Okay,
Is
I'm
a
not surprised by that comment because they might
bold
argue they've been
claim.
doing that the whole time.
They would, yeah, and they've been making this case the entire time. So it's like, oh yeah, here this is only 13 hours ago, so let's get the hot gossip in here.
Yep, yep. I love how we're gossiping about everything but Next.js Conf, but that is kind of the spirit of this stream. If you're here, you're probably interested in
And
other
someone asked about
things.
my company. It's not edge.io, it's edg.io. That's the name of the company,
Ooh,
edgio.
interesting. So are y'all built on top of other infrastructure or do you own the servers and everything?
We have one of like the three largest networks in the world. We have our own points of presence. That's why I say we're like a
Wow.
Cloudflare or a Fastly. Like we are our own network.
You're one of them. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And we have companies like, like companies that are having ads at the Super Bowl are like the type of companies that are running on us. So we are enterprise ready. Like literally, it's been very hard for me to make the case to any individual devs to use it because we're so enterprise.
Yep. Totally. And oh man, this is spicy
Oh
because
yeah,
it's going
I
after
know, right?
React ethos. It's not just a
Yeah, it is.
comment.
I mean, I will
Yeah,
give it to Michael Florence. I think he has the cred to say something like this and have it be taken
probably.
seriously because he's been in React since the beginning, and I think he's has also been a lot less inflammatory than Ryan in how he communicates these things. So I thought this was great.
Sure.
I thought this was like a very respectful, well written hot take.
I agree with that. Yeah. And I mean, I would have to see examples in order to know what he's played with or what he's doing. But I believe we could have done it without use client. I believe that. Because now
You can do
Astro is
anything about
wondering, like,
anything. It's a
well,
computer.
yes, sure. But like, yeah, it's possible. That's a weird sentence. You're right.
That's the problem with Turing completeness. Once you understand Turing completeness, you'll understand that nothing has to ever be done the way it's done. By definition,
Nope.
it could be done a different way.
It could be in Rust, man. It could have been. We could have had Rust in the browser. Who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I sympathize, because Astro libraries, a year from now, when people have use client in all their React libraries, will they think, oh, when I import a use client component into Astro, I don't need the client directive, right? Because React did it. Like, will that be a question? Will people wonder, how do I use this? Like, we haven't gotten it yet, luckily. But a year from now, yeah. Whoops. We did client differently. Sorry.
Yeah, it's so funny, especially with React. It's like the downstream effects of every single little implementation change just ripples out so many
It
ways,
ripples so much.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was one of Ryan's takes of, I mean, he tries to be very charitable, but I could tell it's like Solid built these amazing async primitives. We do suspense and all that really well, but we do it our own way. But
Mhm.
React is just the behemoth and it will inform what people ask for when they look at these other tools. Like because Next.js is so big, everyone asks about ISR, even though it's not a thing outside of Next.js. Same thing. If people are coming from
Yeah.
React to Solid, they're like, "Where's my server suspense?" And he's like,
Mhm.
"Well, we did it a different way." And at some point, you kind of have to follow the herd in order to grease the wheels of adoption. And
Yeah,
it
this is
hurts.
what bugs
Hurts.
me though about people who come from one framework to another. They're looking for similar implementations, not similar outcomes. And this is why
Yeah. Yeah.
they're tech brained because they can't think about like what I'm actually trying to accomplish here.
Yeah.
It's like you're trying to accomplish a smooth UI with little jank, and there's like an infinite variety of ways to do that. And so they're like, no, but I have achieved that by doing it this way. So if you don't do this, then you're not going to be able to achieve that. It's like, no, we do this and we may actually achieve what you want better.
Yep. But if there's too much friction, man, it hurts. It does hurt.
But it's only friction from the perspective of someone who learned how to do it a different way. Because also
Yes.
sometimes you could do it differently in a way with a better outcome and is actually simpler if you were to start from ground zero and had to learn one or the other, because someone has already learned the other, relearning a new thing seems like overhead, even if the new thing is easier. That was the big
Yep.
problem with Redwood, is that Redwood actually did do a lot of things much easier and required less knowledge. But because they'd already spent a year learning how to use Next, they're like, oh, but I have to learn a new thing. It's like, but it's not actually that hard to learn the new thing. And once you learn it, you're going to find it's actually simpler.
Yep. It's a tough argument, but it's one that I believe in a lot.
Yeah. Do you know anything
Yeah.
about Nuxt server components? Someone's
I
asked about that in the
don't.
chat.
I know they are working on it. And I know that Daniel Rowe was hinting at it because we did a stream together a couple months ago to try out view transitions and a couple other things. And they're
Yeah, it
innovating in
looks
a
like,
lot of spaces.
yeah,
Like their
he's
dev
got a
tools are
canonical blog
insane.
post, it looks like.
Oh yeah, nice, nice,
Yeah, this is exciting.
Mr. Daniel.
I saw this when Daniel put it out, and I was like, obviously this was going to happen. Um, so it's just kind of like a question of how. It's like with Redwood. It's like everyone I think waited like 2 or 3 years to be like, is this gonna blow over? And then it didn't. They're like, crap, we gotta do it. And
Yeah.
so now everyone kind of like, all right, we're doing it. Let's figure it out.
Yep. Yep. I think they are. Except Svelte. Svelte held on. Staunchly
Really?
opposed to the server component spec. So there you go.
Because they don't need it. Because they already have small client, small bundle, and all this other stuff that is the point of server components. Like they don't need it.
Yes. And I agree with them. I've noticed in general, Vue is more open to having multiple happy paths and doing things that mirror a lot of frameworks. And
Yeah.
Svelte is not. Svelte is more locked down. Like I asked a question on Twitter: is there a suspense equivalent in other frameworks, like hoisting up errors from APIs or loading states from APIs?
Mm-hmm.
Vue is like, yeah, Vue suspense. It works like React. Svelte, no, we have async await, but we just don't want suspense. Like that is seemed to track a lot.
So they
Where
want
Svelte
people to
is one
implement
way.
their own loading spinners.
Or say that again.
So Svelte would say if you want suspense like functionality, you would write that yourself with just like having a loading spinner.
Yeah, it's tough because if you have like multiple loading states and you want them to all bubble up to one large loading skeleton, Svelte doesn't really have a way other than hoisting all your data fetchers to one spot.
See, I wouldn't do that anyway. I would only want a loading thing for a single thing that's actually loading from the server.
Yeah, less layout shift. And now that they're really deep on Svelte Kit being the christened way, I get that they're just not really focused on that, like pure client spa and you're rolling everything yourself. Like, no, everything's probably in a data fetcher, probably hoisted to the server page level, and you're probably passing it down. So we're just not going to worry about it. And no one worries about it unless they're just looking for equivalents from what they know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, going back to they're not thinking about outcomes, they're thinking about implementations.
Yep, it's rough. So
Cool,
they're
man.
making us
Well,
big. Yes.
this is super fun. What else you wanna talk about?
I might actually cut us off here. I had it
All
cut
right.
off originally for 3:30. I bumped it forward a little bit
No, that's fine.
because
Yeah.
yeah, have to deal with house things. But this has been great. I didn't
Yeah.
expect us to have a full AI chatbot working with how experimental everything is, but hey, the master of demos himself brought us an amazing demo. So there you go.
I mean, and I didn't build this. This is like full credit to Toby, who's on the Redwood team. I just cloned it down, made sure it actually worked yesterday. So, but yeah, I'm really glad we got to show this off. You already know so much about RSCs. I was very curious to get your take on it. So the fact that you're fairly impressed with where we're at, that's a good signal to me that we're on the right path and that we're making good progress. So very, very happy to hear that.
Yeah. I mean, routing is going to be a big question. But
Yeah.
if you're able to
Oh, yeah.
get server suspense in Vite, like that's impressive. That is really
Mhm.
impressive. And I know there's been ongoing work to do a general solution. So I'm hoping we can share that. And Astro
Yeah, I
can use
mean,
it as server component bridge. We don't care that much about, but if you have a server component library and you want it to work in Astro, that'll matter at some point. So we will need a bridge that can support bundling this.
yeah, I know Astro has always looked to other frameworks for, how to do things. I know Redwood has one they have looked at for some things like generator commands and like the tutorial. And people have been like, hey, Redwood has a good thing here. You should check that out. Then they'd be like, oh, yeah, like Redwood does have a good thing here. So I know you already appreciate what we're doing. So if you ever want to like get
Yeah.
some sort of dialogue going between the core teams, be happy to set that up.
Yeah. Yeah. If y'all have progress on beat bundling, I think that's mostly what we're looking for. So, I
Awesome.
mean, I'm looking for. It's not on the Astro roadmap, but it's on my roadmap. I know it's going to
Yeah.
matter. It's a
The
little
Ben
early,
Holmes white
but it will matter.
roadmap.
It will matter. I swear.
Awesome, man.
Heck
Well,
yeah.
cool.
Well, I'm going to funnel everyone into the mainstream Next.js Conf boots on the ground commentary stream, which seems to be going on right now. So if y'all want to see the boring way to use React Server components, I mean, you can go over there, I guess. So yeah, we'll start a raid for Theo. There you go.
Alrighty.
Throw a bone.
He definitely needs your huge audience.
Oh yeah. But to anyone here who's at least curious, where can they find you around Twitter as you're popping
AJC
around with
Web
Redwood?
Dev on all the places on the
Okay.
internet. AJCWebDev.com, Twitter /AJC Web Dev, Twitch, GitHub, YouTube, and then for Redwood, just redwoodjs.com.
Redwoodjs.com. There's a million ways to build a startup, and this is one of the best, one of the most fully featured.
Okay.
So I should actually build something with it.
You really should.
But good to see you. Yep. We can. We can. Now that you're back in the space.
Yes.
So there we go. Thank y'all for joining. Drop a follow. We're live Thursdays, guaranteed. Satisfaction guaranteed. And thanks also for the sub. Elian, you're an amazing person. All right. Go enjoy the
Should've been subbed
Theo
already.
thing. Yep. See y'all around.